Welcome back to the Boardman Black and Gold podcast. It's been a couple of weeks since we last had an outside perspective episode, but the segment is coming back this week with our resident Chargers fan. Luke Clatterbuck is our representative here today. He's got a very interesting fandom, seeing as how he hails from Danville, Virginia. If any of you know where that is, that's pretty impressive because I didn't know where it was before I went to college. So I'll let Luke introduce himself. And hey, Luke, just tell me a little bit about why you were a Chargers fan, seeing as how you're at least 4,000 miles from Los Angeles.
Yeah, my story is a bit of a unique one when it comes to picking my team, seeing as I grew up only video games, marching band, musicals, Broadway, things like that's the type of stuff that I liked. I did not watch football on Sunday. On Sunday, as soon as I got home from church, I just wanted to go play video games the whole day. Thought it was just boring to watch football. So I didn't watch football going all the way through elementary school, middle school, high school. Freshman year of college, my friends needed an extra guy for their fantasy football. They had like an uneven amount of dudes. And I was like, I don't know anything about it, but I could probably learn what guys are good and get them on my team and try and beat some people. So that's what I did. That was the year after Herbert's rookie year where he got Offensive Rookie of the Year. So I was like, well, I got to take last year's Offensive Rookie of the Year as my quarterback. So that's week in and week out. I'm watching these Chargers games, hoping that Justin Herbert does well. And he just lights up every defense he's going against. And I'm just like, I love this guy. And I'm sitting there, and that's the only team that I want to win at that point. And it starts growing. And that's really where the love of the Chargers came from. And I think like their media team also does a great job of highlighting the personas of the different players. So I think that's a huge part of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's definitely true that, their social media team is pretty much always incredible. And I want to say that I actually met one of the guys that was part of the team. I wasn't maybe wasn't like the main guy, but had worked for the Chargers for maybe like a year or two, like around that time when you started watching. But as far as it goes, you're a fairly new Chargers fan. You kind of had me fooled, to be honest, because your ball knowledge is incredible. And, we'll dive into that here. Heck, right now we'll start talking about this. I mean, give me kind of your vibes for what the Chargers are like right now. Like, they're 6-3, I believe. And, they're kind of, I would say personally that they're probably one of the scarier teams in the AFC. From a Chargers fan's perspective, what is your take on the vibes right now for this team?
I mean, we're going in the season and it was looking great. We added an offensive line piece and Mekhi Becton. We're trying to get things together. And then Rashawn Slater gets an injury, out for the season before the season's even started. And you know what it's like when a quarterback loses his left tackle. Luckily, we have Joe Alt. ... Joe Alt comes in, beat the Chiefs, and I'm like, this is it. It's finally going to happen. Beat the Chiefs, beat the Raiders, but I guess everybody's beating the Raiders, so that wasn't such a big thing. That Broncos game, Herbert comes in with that clutch. Like, I thought it was over. That clutch throw, I thought, we got this in the bag. We're one of the top teams. All day easy. Then we get to that Giants game, Joe Alt gets hurt. I'm like, well, we still got stuff, but it's the impact that Joe Alt being hurt was obvious. Got destroyed by the Giants, got destroyed by the Commanders. Like, there really wasn't seeing anything. So fast forward to now, the offensive pieces are still kind of there. Kamani Vidal stepped up in a huge way in the running back position, but it's kind of like almost all of our games without Joe Alt, we have looked like an entirely different team. And it's just, that's my big question mark right now. Obviously, we're able to beat the Titans, but barely. And Joe Alt went down that game. So it's kind of, I think this game on Sunday is really going to tell us where the Chargers are at, especially after losing Joe Alt.
I saw you guys went and traded for an offensive lineman from, I believe it was the Saints. We were kind of going back and forth a couple of days ago just about how decimated the Chargers offensive line is right now. And it's funny because, you were saying the only healthy one that they have is quite literally statistically the worst center in all of football. So that kind of gives me as a Steelers fan a little bit of hope, especially seeing as how we're coming off of one of our most explosive games defensively. So what is the game plan for the Chargers? How do you manage without Joe Alt, as well as pretty much the entirety of an offensive line in front of Justin Herbert, who is having a very good statistical year, but is also turning the ball over a little bit more than in years past.
Yeah, yeah. Watching Justin for the last couple years playing football, it looked like he always wanted to do things perfectly. I'd see him always like take a sack, throw the ball out of bounds, like not trying to take that deep shot because he doesn't want to throw an interception. That's why he only had 3 picks last year. That's why he only had about I think it was 5 picks the year before. Like was not a big interception guy. This year it's kind of like all or nothing. I just see him kind of slinging the ball around, and I think it's a fun time. Problem is it leads him to hold on to the ball for too long because he's waiting for that route to develop. So I feel like it's got to be in the game plan to start setting up some shorter, some screen passes, some quick passes, get the ball out of his hands quickly because he's going to put it on the money every time. He just needs a second to put it on the money. I think our running game has also taken a hit when it comes to the offensive line. Amari and Hampton won't be back till after the bye week, is what Harbaugh said a little bit ago. So it's really up to Kamani Vidal, and with a weak offensive line, I'm not so sure how that's going to go, and I'm not so sure how I like the addition that we made to offensive line. We made one, and that's what I was hoping for, but it's like his grade this season was not all that great. So, but honestly, Herbert hasn't had a lot of time in the pocket, but he's also held onto the ball for an extremely long amount of time in the pocket too. There's a couple of these sacks that it's like, yeah, they kind of rushed him pretty quickly, but he held onto the ball for pretty long. He probably could have gotten that out of there. So I think getting the ball out of his hands is a big piece.
Who's one of his more like get the ball out targets? Is that Oronde Gadsden, who's he kind of came onto the scene just a couple of games ago, and he's been killing it. I actually picked him up as a tight end in one of my fantasy leagues, and that turned out to be a big pickup. Is it going to be a steady dose of him this week, or is it more so like, hey, let's find a way to throw some screens, to Ladd McConkey? How much can they throw to Keenan Allen, down the field? What's the game plan, especially against the Steelers pass rush this week?
Yeah, Oronde Gadsden. I said this at the beginning of the year, actually, because Herbert has loved to throw to the tight end position, making tight ends like Will Dissly look like a good player last year. So he loves to get the ball to the tight end, and I think that's kind of an overlooked part because I'm watching it. We got Darnold Parham and Gerald Everett balling out, and then being almost non-existent when they go to other teams. And that's his thing. He likes getting to the tight end. So when we drafted a tight end, I was like, I bet you this guy's going to go pretty crazy. And there are also like reports in training camp and stuff like that. But I think he was injured the first couple of weeks, which is why it took him a little bit to come on. When I'm seeing screen passes and quick passes, funny enough, it's to Quentin Johnston, which is not really like, it doesn't seem like that's his build. It doesn't seem like that's like what his job. But I think initially it was because we wanted him to get the ball more. So we worked it in there, but I mean, his run after catch, he can break some tackles. Like that's what he can do. So I think a lot of people would lean towards like a Ladd McConkey, but when I'm seeing these screenplays, they're going to Quentin Johnston. I think another sleeper pick there is Darius Davis, who's back in. We had him running a bunch of screenplays and things like that. And I think they don't do it a lot, but I think we're going to have to go into our bag here when it comes to picking what to play without this offensive line. And I wouldn't be surprised if I saw some Darius Davis screens or jet sweeps or things like that coming in.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you kind of just have to figure things out when your offensive line is completely battered like the way that it is. But in the same way, you talked about early on with Joe Alt and then kind of the difference without Joe Alt. I mean, even in the meantime, they've kind of found ways to win, even as their entire team is pretty hurt. I mean, even defensively, too. I mean, you guys are just like the living infirmary of the NFL, I feel like. So, and even especially defensively, too. Let's kind of pivot to that specifically because, I know that you guys picked up one of those guys, Owe from the Ravens just a couple of weeks ago. He's a pretty big impact player, and he was with the Ravens. We're pretty familiar with him as Steelers fans. What can we expect defensively, specifically, on the other side of Justin Herbert?
Yeah, I mean, I think Owe was not having that great of a year this year, which kind of led to him getting traded away. But he's almost had a sack every game since he's been on the Chargers. which I keep seeing it. I keep telling my mom, that's the guy we traded for. And she's like, nice. And that's kind of the thing going on. The defense is interesting because last year we were the number one scoring defense in the league. It was like nothing, like nobody scored in the first quarter against our team. And this year it's like against teams, especially the Colts. The Colts just ran through us. It got to be a little bit ridiculous. Deion Henley has been a really strong part of the defense. If you didn't know, he had a brother that died last week. And I didn't even know anything about it, but he got this sack and got on his knees and like prayed while he was on this. I was like, that's like a celebration. That's a cool celebration. But he said afterwards it's because his brother died. And I think we've always had a strong pass rush. You know, Khalil Mack. We got Oweh now. Tuli Pelotu is my goat forever. I put the T up every time he gets something going. I love him, and I like seeing him having pretty big plays. It really just seems to be a health thing. I think Denzel Perryman is like a really slept on piece of our defense. It feels like we have more physicality when he's out there. And it's, it could be one week we're getting ran through, and the other week it's everybody's on the ball all the time. It's like one person will be mid tackle and 6 other Chargers players are rushing to it. So I think just keeping that mentality of like everyone swarming to the ball, I think it's going to be pretty big, especially with the injuries and things like that.
Sure. So what are the things that you're most concerned about from the Steelers aspect? Coming into this week, as a Chargers fan, what is the key for the Chargers to do to contain the Steelers? That can be whether defensively or offensively.
I mean, somebody's got to do something about TJ Watt, but I think that's the obvious part. Like, I'm concerned that Justin is just going to get out for the season. I feel like TJ Watt's going to have a field day in the backfield. And I think probably just getting the ball out as quickly as possible and getting him kind of frustrated, although you don't want to get that guy too angry. Defensively, I mean, we got to take advantage with the lack of ability coming from Rodgers. I mean, we gotta get to him quickly. I mean, the man can still spin it. Like he literally, we can see some vintage Rodgers performances going on. So our only hope is to kind of disrupt what's going on and get it to those points of like where you're looking and you're watching this team and you're like, this isn't the Steelers that I just watched last week. That's our only hope. If we can get into one of those spills where it's like, the Steelers teams doesn't look the same as when they beat the Colts, I think that's when we got a chance of winning that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there. Well, each time we do these segments with a guest, we always ask for a score prediction and for who's going to win the game. And I'll throw on top of that as well, how do you think the game plays out? What are some big plays that happen? Give me the flavor for this game.
Okay. I'm thinking it's going to be incredibly close. I think there's going to be a lot of field goals. And I'm going to go with like 24-20, I think. I think 24-20. I'm going to go Chargers just because if I went Steelers, I wouldn't be able to forgive myself, I don't think. I think we get one beautiful 70-yard Quentin Johnson, not 70, but a deep pass, Quentin Johnson touchdown, I think will come in there. And I'm kind of expecting Jaylen Warren to go a little bit crazy and to kind of take off this week because for some reason, if a running back gets hot against our defense, it just doesn't work out well. I think it's a big Quentin Johnston game, especially because he didn't have a lot of catches the last couple of weeks. He had that big touchdown last week, but the week before, not even one catch. So I'd go a big Quentin Johnston game. Jaylen Warren might kind of go crazy, but 24-20 is my Chargers is my pick there.
All right. That sounds kind of like what I'm sort of thinking for this game. I feel like it's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be super high scoring necessarily. I kind of think both of these defenses, just with the way both offenses are structured right now with the Chargers injuries, the Steelers, kind of are what they are offensively. One of the things that I've kind of noticed in the statistics is it seems like the Steelers, as far as yards go, are bottom portion of the league, but they're very efficient. The Chargers, on the other hand, have a lot of yards and are one of the more explosive offenses in the league, but they're not nearly as efficient as far as scoring goes. Would that kind of track with you?
Yeah, there's been a million times that I've seen them get in that red zone. I'm like, we just made it 70 yards and we can't get these last 5. What's going on with that? We've been a little better as of the last couple of weeks, but that was a big thing in the opening stretch.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, that I was looking at those numbers and I'm like, okay, this seems like that's what that means, but haven't not watched every single Chargers game this year. That was definitely something that I kind of wanted to confirm with you. So, well, we appreciate you giving us this perspective on the Chargers this week. As a Chiefs hater, I want to see the Chargers succeed. And of all the years that the Chargers seem to be succeeding over the Chiefs, it's the fact that the Broncos are also succeeding, and that just kind of makes me sad.
Yeah. Chiefs haters are welcome here.
Always welcome. As much as you hate the Chiefs being a division rival, the Steelers also hate the Chiefs. So, and I mean, who doesn't hate the Chiefs, right?
Yeah, and only Chiefs fans don't hate the Chiefs. That's about it.
And the refs.
And, the refs love the Chiefs.
They do indeed. Well, anyways, Luke Clatterbuck here on the Boardman Black and Gold podcast representing the Los Angeles Chargers. If you want to follow Luke on Instagram, he is a power lifter. You can follow him at SBD_Buck on Instagram. He's got some pretty hype videos. Definitely some stuff that I enjoy keeping up with Luke as far as his powerlifting journey goes. And you can also follow us on Instagram at Boardman and Gold. And as always, Boardman Black and Gold is sponsored by Zeka Enterprises, crafting furniture solutions in northwestern Pennsylvania. You can call 910-777-3871 to turn your furniture problems into furniture solutions. Luke, thanks as always for coming on. And again, big ball knower over there with the Chargers. It's hard to say over there because he's more East Coast than anything, being in Danville, Virginia. But he is a big Chargers fan, and we appreciate the insights that he's given us ahead of this big Steelers-Chargers Sunday night football game. Who's going to come out on top? Luke's predicting a win. David is predicting a Chargers win. I am predicting a Steelers win. So make sure you tune in next week for this breakdown of this Chargers game. And we will see you on the Boardman Black and Gold podcast with Zane and David next week. Hopefully after a Here We Go Steelers win.